condition now known as Functional Neurological Disorder, FND, has undergone a significant and complex evolution within the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM, reflecting broader shifts in our understanding of the relationship between the mind and the body. From its early conceptualization as a conversion of psychological distress into physical symptoms to its current definition as a disorder of nervous system function, the history of FND in the DSM is a story of evolving diagnostic criteria and a gradual move away from a purely psychological explanation. DSM-1, 1952, the era of conversion reaction. In the inaugural edition of the DSM, FND was classified as a psychoneurotic disorder under the term conversion reaction. This terminology was heavily influenced by psychoanalytic theory, which posited that unconscious conflicts were converted into symbolic physical symptoms. The diagnostic criteria were not as specific as in later editions, but the core concept was the presence of physical symptoms, such as paralysis, blindness, or seizures, that had no identifiable neurological cause and were presumed to be an expression of emotional turmoil. A key, though not mandatory, feature was labile indifference, a purported lack of concern about the severity of the symptoms. DSM-2, 1968, hysterical neurosis, conversion type. The second edition of the DSM saw a change in nomenclature, with conversion reaction becoming hysterical neurosis, conversion type. This classification retained the psychoanalytic underpinnings of its predecessor. The diagnosis was still fundamentally linked to the idea of unconscious conflict manifesting as physical symptoms. The term hysteria, with its long and often stigmatizing history, was still officially part of the diagnostic language, further cementing the view of these symptoms as being psychological in origin. DSM-3, 1980, and DSM-3R, 1987, the rise of conversion disorder and a shift in focus. A significant turning point came with the publication of DSM-3. The term hysterical neurosis was dropped in favor of the more descriptive conversion disorder. This change signaled a move away from a strict adherence to psychoanalytic etiology. While a psychological stressor preceding the onset of symptoms was still a key diagnostic criterion, the emphasis began to shift towards a more descriptive and phenomenological approach. The criteria for conversion disorder in DSM-3 required a loss of or alteration in physical functioning that suggests a physical disorder. Psychological factors judged to be etiologically related to the symptom. The symptom is not consciously or intentionally produced. The symptom cannot be explained by a known physical disorder. DSM-3R, published in 1987, largely maintained this framework but further refined the criteria, continuing the trend of a more systematic and less theory-bound classification. DSM-4, 1994, and DSM-4TR, 2000, solidifying the criteria. The fourth edition of the DSM and its text revision, DSM-4TR, largely carried forward the diagnostic criteria for conversion disorder established in DSM-3. The core features remain the presence of one or more symptoms or deficits affecting voluntary motor or sensory function that suggest a neurological or other general medical condition. The link to psychological factors remained a central component, with the criterion stating that psychological factors are judged to be associated with a symptom or deficit because the initiation or exacerbation of the symptom or deficit is preceded by conflicts or other stressors. However, a crucial element was the requirement that the symptom or deficit was not intentionally produced or feigned, as in factitious disorder or malingering. The diagnosis of conversion disorder was often one of exclusion, made after extensive medical testing failed to reveal a neurological explanation. DSM-5, 2013, a paradigm shift to functional neurological symptom disorder. The most profound changes in the conceptualization and diagnosis of this condition occurred with the release of DSM-5. The term conversion disorder was retained but was now subtitled with the new and preferred term, Functional Neurological Symptom Disorder, FND. This change was more than just semantic, it represented a fundamental shift in understanding. The key revisions in the DSM-5 criteria for FND include removal of the requirement for a psychological stressor. The necessity of identifying a preceding psychological conflict or stressor was eliminated. This acknowledged that while psychological factors can be relevant for some individuals, they are not universally present and their absence should not preclude a diagnosis. Emphasis on positive neurological signs. Instead of being a diagnosis of exclusion, DSM-5 emphasized the importance of positive clinical findings on neurological examination that are inconsistent with recognized neurological or medical disease. This includes signs like Hoover's sign, for functional weakness, or the tremor entrainment test. The emphasis of la belle indifference, the classic sign of la belle indifference, was officially removed as a diagnostic criterion, as research had shown it to be an unreliable and often absent feature. Agnostic stance on etiology. The name functional neurological disorder itself reflects a move towards a more descriptive and less etiologically presumptive diagnosis. It focuses on the dysfunction of the nervous system rather than presupposing a psychological cause. Note that functional doesn't mean psychological or unknown. It indicates a problem in how the nervous system works, not structure. DSM-5 retains conversion disorder, functional neurological symptom disorder, as the official term. Let's clarify that functional neurological disorder, FND, is now widely used clinically and in research, but conversion disorder remains the primary heading in the DSM-5. This evolution in the DSM reflects a growing body of research that points to FND as a complex disorder at the interface of neurology and psychiatry, involving genuine and disabling alterations in brain function. The historical journey from conversion reaction to functional neurological disorder. FND in the DSM, a brief history. DSM-I, 1952, called conversion reaction, rooted in psychoanalysis. DSM-2, 1968, renamed hysterical neurosis, still psychological focus. DSM-3, 1980, became conversion disorder, less theory-based. DSM-4, 1994, similar criteria, still linked to stressors. DSM-5, 2013. Renamed functional neurological symptom disorder. Removed stressor requirement. Focus on positive clinical signs, not exclusion. Dropped la belle indifference. Trend, shift from psychological to functional, brain-based understanding.